Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Survival Skills Podcast, and my name is Greg Jabez. And today we have two incredible guests discussing two important topics, and that is finance and artificial intelligence, and blockchain and solving problems. We have Will Lee from C Labs and Brian Revy from Appen. So, for those of you who don't know, C Labs is the company behind the project Cello. Cello is an open platform that makes financial tools accessible to anyone with a mobile phone. This is something similar to what Facebook was trying to do with their project Libra, but they didn't succeed. And these guys seem to be on the right track and they're making things happen. They are actually backed by some of the best VCs out there, Andreessen Horowitz being one of them, Polychain Capital, and they're also backed by Jack Dorsey. And as a side note, they have Navar Ravikant as their advisor, and I know some of you guys, the listeners, you're a big fan. So the reason I'm very excited about this episode is opportunity, right? If you listen to this podcast, I'm sure you'll be able to find something that appeals to you, that you can do something about it, right? There is a subject of micro work, and there is the entire ecosystem of Cello, which you can actually, if you listen to it and you go through it, and you do your own research about them, you'll find that there is so much opportunity in terms of what you can do within their ecosystem. If you're an entrepreneur, right, you can find a way to work with them and build something that's meaningful to people. But if you're an investor as well, these guys are running an auction right now for Cello Gold. So you can actually get on the auction because it's going on right now. And for those of you who are interested in work, like I said, Brian talks about micro work, which is something that they've been doing, and they did a pilot even in Kenya, and it was very successful. So, I mean, I hope when you listen to this, you'll find something that appeals to you and you can do something about it, especially in these difficult times. I think being more energetic and proactive is something that we need to do the most. So otherwise, I don't want to waste too much of your time. You guys enjoy my conversation with Brian and Will. So to begin, should we start with introduction? Let's start with Brian.
I'm Brian Revy, the Director of Crowd Care at Appen. And I think it'd be helpful if I give a little context for what Appen does as a business. So at the highest level, Appen is essentially providing the human side to AI in order to make AI work in the real world. Essentially, for any AI system to be effective, it needs to have humans in the loop. You can imagine, in order to accurately, effectively deploy AI, you need to have trained that AI using humans. You also need humans to monitor that those AI systems are acting effectively. And so that's where Appen really comes in, is we actually leverage a large global community, online community, all collectively, their input to label data, whether it be text, image, video, audio, are effectively training the artificial intelligence systems of the future.
So my name is Will. I work at C Labs, which is the team that's initially helping to build and shape Cello. And Cello is an open permissionless platform that basically with the goal of creating financial tools that are accessible to anyone with a mobile phone. And so the people who are helping to build this system are all united in this mission of creating a new financial system that creates conditions of prosperity for all. And it's really driven by this thesis around, we all know that there are a lot of benefits to cryptocurrency and blockchain, but one of the main frictions to broader adoption has been around usability, right? And for instance, right now, if my mom or my dad wanted to buy Bitcoin, it could be a pretty complicated and cumbersome process to buy it and then use it. And so we've really taken an approach focused around usability. We've introduced a lot of design decisions focused around making Cello much more accessible, which include making it mobile first. And we also have other things like a stable coin, which means that it's a lot more lot less volatile than say a Bitcoin would be. And then other design decisions like an ultralight client, which makes syncing a lot faster, especially in low connectivity settings. We have this really cool phone number mapping tool, which makes sending value as easy as sending a text message. All around the idea that we want to make this as seamless and easy as possible for the average user.
I mean, I think let's focus on the product first, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to solve, to make, say, the narrative in crypto has been, bank the unbanked, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so many projects working on that, including Facebook was coming up with their own cryptocurrency to try to resolve that problem. But why does Celo make sense to you that it is the right product and you're actually solving the actual problem that's there? Because most of these other blockchain companies that have been trying, but they've been quite unsuccessful.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. First off, I think the fact that Facebook is interested in this space is very validating because it shows that there is opportunity and there is need out there. That said, I think, Facebook historically hasn't had the best reputation when it comes to privacy. And I will say that there are some pretty important differences between what Celo is doing and what Libra is doing. I think that some of the main differences are we've taken a really strong emphasis on designing for everyone and being much more user-friendly. And so even in the past year, we've gone to 10 different countries, launched pilots, done a lot of user research to try to make sure that this is a global solution that is relevant for our end users and not something that's kind of baked in Silicon Valley and then pushed out to the world. And again, a lot of the insights that we got from our research has really informed some of the design choices that we've made. For instance, we had this assumption before when we were starting that, data was fairly affordable in a lot of these markets. But based on our research, we realized that, people were really kind of data stingy. And we needed to make sure that if this were going to be more widely adopted, we needed to make it much more light. And so that informed our ultralight sync, which I think has become a defining feature of our protocol and then rooted in an end user need. So again, there are a lot of different examples about that, but I do think that what makes us a little bit unique is the fact that we have a really tight loop between making sure that we listen to a lot of our end users and then have informed the protocol and design decisions that we've made on the backside.
Right. So another thing is that when these kind of issues are brought on, things like privacy are mentioned, which are very, very important. But at the same time, in the markets that you're trying to operate in, where people are more like living on a survival basis, they don't care as much about privacy. But this is something that will come at a later stage as valuable to them once they start to use this platform and understand the implications of the privacy. Have you thought of taking advantage of that? That maybe privacy isn't that much of a bigger problem. The issue here that I would see would be most people do not have smartphones, for example, right? In a lot of those areas that you're trying to target. So how are you resolving those primary problems that are directly linked to the economy?
Like obviously, smartphone penetration is rapidly growing. So there's 5.5 billion people out there with smartphones, and that number is increasing by double digits every year. And so we're making a bet on the long-term future of smartphone adoption. And we really tried to optimize for creating an experience that can be done on even really basic Android devices. Like we bought this very cheap phone when we landed in Liberia. It's like $20, and we're able to get the smartphone working, with the application working on that smartphone. So I do think that we are making a bet about the proliferation of smartphones because even 3 or 5 years ago, they weren't as widely accessible. But now technology is making them a lot cheaper and more affordable for people around the world.
You guys are backed by some of the largest VCs. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? Because that's not primarily how the cryptocurrency companies work at the moment, right? They create a coin and they try to pump the price as much as they can, and then they survive through that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really validating that we have some very big names, very reputable names that are backing Celo and Celo's mission. And I think what draws them to Celo are the same things that draw myself and a lot of the other contributors who are working on the platform, which is this mission about trying to create financial tools that are accessible to everyone. I think we have a really strong team. I think we have a really solid tech stack and identified some really cool opportunities around the world. And I think the combination of that is very attractive for investors like Andreessen Horowitz, Polychain Capital, and others.
How will this alliance work? I mean, we have seen the backlash that Facebook has faced for trying to do this. How is this going to work this time around for you, for Celo?
Yeah. I mean, so I think part of it is interesting because it's, I think, a little bit difficult to decouple how much of that backlash was like against the idea of a stable coin and an alliance and how much of it was specific. Again, Facebook doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to privacy. And so I imagine some of that would just like very anti-Facebook backlash. But there are differences with the alliance, right? So in terms of structure and governance, so Celo is a lot more decentralized and open. And so governance is actually not controlled by the alliance primarily, but by Celo Gold holders. Basically, the members of the alliance are committing to a mission around using technology, blockchain technology, to promote financial inclusion around the world. And each alliance member is doing that in its own unique way. So we have people and organizations in the alliance that are focused on providing on and off ramps, some that are providing wallets, obviously Appen is here, and exploring ways to use Celo as a payment solution for micro work. So it's a little bit of a different structure than the Libra Association.
And so you're expecting the goal is to get Celo used as a currency. Celo
Gold. That is still Celo dollar, Celo gold. Actually, might be helpful if I provide a bit of context on the differences.
Right.
Yeah. So Celo dollars is the stable coin, and Celo gold is a native network asset, right? And so Celo dollars is tied to the value of the US dollar, but the protocol does allow for you to create other stable coins pegged to other fiat currencies or baskets of currencies or anything that you can kind of measure, anything from like a index to a barrel of oil, etc. And all this is kind of backed by Celo Gold. Celo Gold is the native asset that you would use to really participate in the Celo ecosystem. So doing things like voting in governance proposals or being a validator, you would need Celo Gold to do.
So just for clarity for the people listening, if for those who are familiar, say with Ethereum, we would say Celo Gold is like Ether and Celo Dollar is like a Tether or another. Right.
Yeah. They're very like Celo Dollar is a stable asset, and Celo Gold is like an asset whose value can go up or down. The difference, though, is I think the Celo, the way that it's stabilized. So like Tether is stabilized by fiat. So if there's like a bank account that in theory has $1 US for $1 USDT that exists, and Celo's stability mechanism is a bit different. It's backed by crypto assets and by an algorithm that'll match supply and demand.
So is it the same with the MakerDAO? Is that fair to compare it to that? To the DAO?
Yeah. I think it's closer to DAI. There's still some differences. And we have a stability analysis on our website if you want to kind of know the nitty gritty, but yeah.
So Brian, there is, the concept of micro work has been around. I don't think it has been working successfully as much because there's always a way that they get diluted at a certain point in time and then people lose interest, right? We have seen this with surveys. We have seen this with earn.com, for example. How is what you're doing now to get people to work on AI models, contribute to the building of AI in general? How do you look at sustaining that as an ongoing thing, and where it doesn't get diluted by some kind of a compromises to the system or people taking advantage in a certain way?
And are you mean diluted as in people perhaps lose interest, or?
I mean, people find loops around it, and then you probably that people can write bots to actually just do certain tasks, and then the platforms actually become less fun for real users?
Yes. So there is a lot we do for just monitoring the activity on our platform to make sure that we're getting high quality data in back. So we have all sorts of ways to try to detect bots that might be on the system to get them out as quickly as possible, as well as on our platform. Our customers are able to leverage a variety of tools in order to make sure that they're getting high quality data. One of those is inserting like a ground truth, a kind of a hidden ground truth, where it's pre-labeled data by our customer, where they're validating the user's input to make sure it matches the expected result.
And another question to that is, so, I mean, you saying that this is micro work for people, right? It's providing employment to a certain group of people. And for someone would ask, so how long can one actually work on the platform and earn, right? Is this like you get to, I mean, you work for 2 days and that's it? For how long can you put in the work and actually earn from this? How far can it take you as a user?
Well, I mean, so it's, the amount of work is always gated by the opportunities provided by our customers, but there's always work available on the platform. And, some customers have geographic requirements, meaning they need to have people in a certain locale input the data because it's very location specific and they want to make sure they get that context. And so it can mean that in certain areas, there's more or less work. But we have people who've been on our platform for years who use it as their primary source of income. And even in the pilot we did with C Labs, we saw people, the average amount of time in the week that people spent on the platform was, I think, 17 hours. And then some people went north of that. A great anecdote of a guy who's been on our platform for years. He had a dream of going to med school, and he used his earnings on our platform to help pay for his education. And we've tracked him for those years. Like, he's gone from that dream of going to med school to going to med school, and now he's kind of in his residency. And in talking to him, he's always found the tasks on our platform, the micro work tasks on our platform, that are clearly in the healthcare industry. And he's like naturally gravitated towards that because he could see, by me, labeling this data, I'm actually helping to improve the healthcare industry that I'm about to go get involved in. So,
we saw a lot of that in the pilot as well.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like a lot of, so for instance, we had some tasks on there that are around clothing categorization. So what is a blazer? What is like an Oxford shoe? That sort of things. And a lot of the people were really interested in like learning about different types of clothing. And then some folks had a specific interest in fashion and that were really excited to kind of perform the tasks. So I do think that there's like obviously the primary motivator for some of this micro work is the earnings piece. But I do think that there are really interesting angles around like, people wanting to use idle time for something that's part of a greater purpose, right? And also like using this as a way to learn or get experience as well, which are nice side effects.
You have actually already answered one of my questions. I wanted to say, so what is the skill or educational requirement for someone to take part? Like you say, different skill sets, I suppose different levels of education are all important to have like a more diverse set of data. So the next question is, how are you solving the identity problem? I'm from Africa, originally from Malawi, so I know how the identity problem is, right? A lot of people are unidentified. Things like proof of address are not really always relevant to a lot of places. How are you going around that? Because this is a financial product.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think identity is a really big and hairy problem. And the best we can hope is to kind of make some incremental progress to help folks, to give folks the tools to solve that. One of the things that we are working on that I think is really unique and interesting is the idea around phone number mapping. And so what it means is basically it allows you to use your phone number as a proxy for your public address, right? And so it does two things. One, it makes it a lot more usable. Like I know my phone number. Most people know don't know anyone that memorizes their public key. And so this kind of creates a much more tangible real world solution, but it also makes it a lot more usable, right? I could send a text message. So I could send a cello to someone's phone number, and that'll sit in escrow until they verify. And that's just like a much better user experience than having to like ask them for their public key, have them send it to me, have me type it in, make sure that's right, and send it their way. And then it allows you to do things like start using phone number as the primary identifier for someone's real identity.
All right. So yeah, this is fantastic. And I know a lot of people listening right now, they can imagine opportunities already, right? They're entrepreneurs listening. They're like, okay, if I'm in Uganda, I'm in South Africa, this is incredible. What can I do about it? Maybe he's a developer. And you have people right now who want to participate in the microtasks. Like, hey, how do I get involved and earn and also contribute to the building of, a better version of AI? What can they do? Hey, I know you're enjoying the conversation, but before we go ahead, we just need to hear a quick word from our sponsor. Celo is an open platform that makes financial tools accessible to anyone with a mobile phone. Celo Gold is a utility and governance asset required to participate on the Celo platform, a new mobile-first blockchain with over 80 current backers that include Andreessen Horowitz, Polychain Capital, and Jack Dorsey. There is a limited auction of Celo Gold in May. Pre-mainnet launch and referral bonuses are available. This may be a great opportunity if you are interested in the technology, use cases, and participating in the Celo community. Note that this is for non-US persons only and other restrictions apply. To learn more, go to celo.org, and auction is available at coinlist.co/Celo, CELO. Let's continue with the interview.
Well, on the Microtest front, we've got a website. People can sign up and start working. We have various tiers of work. Some that requires a higher level of validation, and then some that's sign up, give us your email and verify, and you're off and running.
And we're at C Labs, the team that's working on Celo. We're really excited about working with Appin and microwork in general as a really cool use case. But that is one of many different applications for the Celo technology. And so to your listeners that are potential entrepreneurs or have like light bulbs flashing in their heads, I would encourage them to check out the Celo website for other opportunities. So it's celo.org. There are different resources that are available, mentorship camps that you can all partake in order to kind of nurture and develop your ideas and help move that forward.
Right. So I know there is a merchant involvement here, right? For Celo. So if you're in Kenya right now, you want to become a merchant, what is the process to allow users to convert their the Celo dollars into fiat currency?
So it depends a little bit on the organization on the other side, but we have a couple of processes. We have like an SDK that'll make it a lot easier for you to accept Celo dollars. But I think the easiest way is just to reach out to us. We're very responsive. So if you go to our website, there's a contact us. There's also an email, partnership@celo.org, I believe. Right. So either of those avenues, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get in touch about next steps.